Hello and welcome back to A Cast for Crows, the Game of Thrones inspired podcast here on Deadscreen.net. We are back to discuss Season 6, Episode 4, titled Book of the Stranger. I am Joe.
I'm Alexa.
I'm Andy. And since this is our first time doing this, I wanted to ask you why they called it Book of the Stranger.
Yeah, well, it was a strange title to pick for sure, but the only reason they did it is because it was referenced when Marjorie was chatting with the High Sparrow. And, I guess in Westeros, they kind of have their own version of the Bible. And, each of the 7 gods in King's Landing has their own book, so to speak. And Marjorie referenced the Stranger to the High Sparrow. And I guess the Stranger is, that's the god that people pray to the least. And it's also, the least known book out of all of them. So I think we're just supposed to take from that Marjorie is, very religious and very well read as far as the books go, but yeah, definitely a strangely titled episode.
So if they each have their own book, oh gosh, you hear that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Thunder's rolling in. If they each have their own book, is it supposed to be is the Stranger not one that someone of higher royalty would have ever read, or does it not matter? Is that not some? Did everybody read all of them or something?
That's a good question. I don't really know. I just know that the Stranger is there's a reason that god is titled the Stranger. It's because it's the one that I think it's the god of death, so to speak. And it's just the one that people tend to avoid, as opposed to the mother or the crone. They're more relatable, and so I don't remember the passage very well. I don't remember why she quoted it, but I think we're just supposed to know that she's very well read from that.
All right. So really, I didn't feel like much happened in this episode till the very end. We finally got 2 Starks back together for the first time, which since feels like season 1. But I feel like not a lot came from it. I feel like it was short-lived.
See, I think it was significant because there was a running theme throughout this episode of sisters taking charge when their brothers were down. We saw it with Sansa and Jon, we saw it with Marjorie and Loras, and we also saw it with Theon and Yara. But regarding Sansa and Jon, I guess you asked last week whether Jon actually had a plan for wanting to leave the Wall, and it turns out that he really didn't. He was just gonna go march along and live his life somewhere, whatever, try to not die again for a while. But Sansa, this was the first time we really saw Sansa take charge of a situation, and she made him realize, look, this is our home, we have to go fight for it again, we have to win it back. And Jon just wasn't really feeling it at first, but then we got the letter from Ramsay, which I know there's quite a bit to talk about with that, but first off, I want to know, what did you guys make of that whole scenario, and what did you make of Ramsay's letter?
Well, I thought Sansa and Jon meeting was important for a number of reasons. Obviously, we want the Starks together. But I also read that this was their first time ever speaking on the show, so I think it really speaks to how much Sansa's grown. She's not nearly as snobby as she used to be. And I think I think that you're really right about the running theme. Sansa really stepped up and was like, no, this is our home. We need to take it back. You don't know what he's done to me. So I think it was interesting. The letter, we'll talk about that more, I guess, once we get into the theory, because I'm with you on this one. I don't really know about it.
Why in our notes did you call it the pink letter? Did I miss something?
No, you didn't miss anything. I kind of was an ass to you guys because I theorized that Ramsay was going to write a letter to Jon when that already happened in the books, so I knew it was coming. And it's very, very important because it's kind of like the readers kind of coined that term "red wedding" from back in season 3. And they also, I don't remember why, but this is also called the Pink Letter by book readers.
I thought that it was because of like the seal on the wax like turned it pink.
That might be
smudge or something.
Or maybe that's just like the stamp that they used or whatever. Maybe it just happened to be pink. I don't know. But yeah, it was something that was interesting was the letter that they read in the show was very different from the book version. One, it was much longer, and two, the number of times that supposedly Ramsay wrote "come and see," it sounds like it sounds like he's really goading them, like just purposely pissing them off. And so it brings up the possibility that maybe Ramsay didn't write this letter at all, and this is also theorized in the books. But one theory I read just yesterday is that Littlefinger wrote the letter, and like the purpose was to get Jon and the wildlings off the wall, and as we saw, Littlefinger's trying to bring the Vale into the war, and then apparently like that would be his goal, is to ally the two armies together and then help Sansa and Jon take over Winterfell again.
Yeah, I mean, I read the theory, you sent it to me. But I think also in the theory it said that like Peter Baelish literally said "come and see" in that episode too, and it was kind of like a little hint that might be him as well.
So I feel like there's been a couple times where we've like had these little like maybe he did write this letter, maybe it was this other person or something like that. But how many times has that actually like turned out to be true? You know what I mean?
Rarely, I would say, but
right.
It's because we have nothing to do until George writes the next book in the next 10 years, so we have to throw out these theories to keep us alive for a while.
Right. So like it never even crossed my mind that he didn't write the letter. It seemed, because Ramsay doesn't seem like a person who is very like eloquent in the way he like talks or says things. He seems very like kind of straightforward, even though he has motives behind certain things, and it just didn't. I never even thought of that until you sort of just brought it up. So I just didn't know if that was people looking to find something where there isn't anything, or if there is some possible truth to that.
I think it's plausible. Littlefinger controls a lot of things that like I don't know if we even know about all of it so far. I don't think it's like impossible. It could be people just looking into things just to find something. But I think also there was like stuff like Ramsay normally writes his letter with like a piece of flayed skin with like the blood of his enemies and stuff, and that wasn't like in the letter. So it just doesn't seem like completely improbable, considering there are like a lot of discrepancies based on like what we've seen in the past.
Right.
Yeah, that was a notable change from the books, was that I'm almost positive that the letter was written in blood, entirely in blood in the book, which kind of threw some doubt on the conspiracy theory. But regarding the show, I just I know Ramsay, he's not as smart as his father. He is more reckless, we know that, but do we really think he would be that reckless to just flat out goad them? Like, he knows Jon has a crap ton of wildlings, so would he really goad them into it, or do we think Littlefinger, who, let's not forget, his plans were like derailed last season when Stannis lost, and so like we hadn't seen him for like 5 episodes or something like that. So we can either choose to believe that he's been doing nothing but purchasing a falcon this whole time for his nephew, or we can believe that he's being his usual plotting self and reframing his plan, but always staying like 2 or 3 steps ahead. But it just depends on what you want to believe about each character.
Yeah,
Right.
see, like, I think Ramsay is insane. I think that's, like, without a doubt. But I think he also realizes that, like, having Sansa in his possession is a strategy, like, it's a strategic move. So to, like, outright threaten her and say that he's gonna, like, kill her and have his soldiers, like, rape her, I think is also, like, a little excessive. I think that might be, like, a call to arms on Littlefinger's part. But I don't really know. I hadn't thought of it until Joe sent me the theory, to be honest. So
And we know that from the preview of the next episode that Sansa meets up with Littlefinger again, and she's clearly not pleased to see him. So he best have something good cooked up if he wants to stay like anywhere close to her good side. So
yeah,
we'll see, I guess. But it's an interesting theory out there. But it was fun to finally see something that I had happened in the books a long time ago, but they pushed it further back in the show. So it was fun to see that.
And so weren't we talking about a theory last week about Rickon and them sort of like being in on their whole deal?
yeah.
And now it doesn't really seem like that's the case.
Yeah, that kind of threw some shade on that when Tonks decided to go and try and murder Ramsay herself. It definitely throws some shade on the theory. We could also think that maybe she is a wildling, so maybe she just was feeling a bit reckless and thought, screw it, I want to take care of this myself now.
Yeah, that's how I
But
perceive it.
I don't know. It definitely throws that theory into a lot of doubt now.
It seems like, again, one of those things, and I feel like as somebody who's only watched the show, there has not been that many times where there's been like major plot points that are like hinted at in one way or another, you know? Because we always knew Littlefinger had some stuff going on, and for the most part, you knew what he was doing. And this just seems like one of those things that maybe at first they were gonna hint at Rickon and her being in on it, but it just, as a purely show watcher, I don't see how that's even like it. It just would be weird to me if that was the case and they hadn't even like given you little hints or little morsels to like come to that conclusion yourself.
Yeah, no doubt. I don't know. At least for show, I can't see that this Lord Umber and Rickon would have they would have been in on a plan together, and then Asha goes and gets herself killed.
Right.
It doesn't
And
seem likely.
It would, if maybe they had hinted at it before and they had hinted at her wanting to speed things along, it would have made sense. But it's just like, I feel like it'd be too much of an out of left field thing if all of a sudden they were like, and they're actually working together. And you'd be like, what? Like there are people who have a hard enough time following the show as it is who don't like, aren't active in following it. So, I'm disappointed because that theory last week I thought was very interesting and I was hoping that was true.
Yeah, it would have been nice to know that a few Northerners were plotting against Ramsay, and maybe there still are some other ones out there that we have not been introduced to yet. But yeah, unfortunately, looks like Rickon's number one ally is now dead. So just have to pray he has some ally inside Winterfell now.
Right, and it hasn't that
I
always.
mean, there have to be Northerners who are rooting for the Starks, so hopefully that one comes through.
I mean, wasn't it like that? Was it last season where there was like some old woman saying something?
The North remembers, yeah.
Yeah. So
and of course she was killed.
Right, but even then, that's the showrunners hinting at like there are some people here that still respect the Starks over everybody else. So, like, I'm not gonna feel like it's out of left field if somebody is all of a sudden like, hey, here's well, here's what's going on, Rickon, and like giving him information or helping him out, whatever that may be. But so I mean that would make a little more sense in the scope of just the show. So Sansa and Jon and a bunch of wildlings are going to go pick up some other Northerners to go take back Winterfell now? That's the whole plan?
That's what it sounds like. Sansa's going to reach out to some of the northern families that have been known to be loyal to the Starks, and you have to presume the wildlings are going to follow. They're willing to follow Jon anywhere. Of course, there's also Brienne and Davos, and we'll see if they want to bring along Melisandre, considering what happened last time she went on to a war. So,
right.
Oh yeah, by the way, quick tidbit. There were hints, some very uncomfortable moments when Davos was like really pressing Melisandre to know what happened to Shireen, and so it seems like a pretty safe bet that he will find that out at some point.
Right.
And we'll have to see how he reacts to that.
Yeah, I don't think he's gonna like her very much.
I think the main question is just flat out, is he gonna kill her or not? Really, that'd be my only question at this point. But they hinted heavily that he will find out. So,
so then I guess we went to King's Landing for a little bit, and some stuff happened, and some people talked, and some words were said back and forth.
Can I just ask, am I the only one who's increasingly confused by this storyline? Like, I'm just not getting it. Like, the dialogue feels very vague, and I don't see where anything is leading to anymore.
So, I completely agree with you. There's a lot of times in this show where you don't know exactly where it's going, but you kind of know it's going somewhere. And this does not feel like every time I'm like, okay, so what does that mean for this? And then it's like they show another, people sitting down talking about stuff, and it like has nothing. I just completely agree with you. I feel like it's all over the place. It seems very scatterbrained, and I would like it to get its shit together and get on track.
Alexa, what do you think?
I thought things were gonna go to like what you had said, like a trial by combat. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what they're gonna do to the High Sparrow. I don't know how they're going to do anything. I don't know what the High Sparrow is gonna do, to be honest.
Yeah, it all seems very up in the air, and it's like I just want it to be
a lot of talking.
Yeah,
Too much talking.
Yeah.
Like, here's a question for you guys. Like, do you have even the slightest idea of what the High Sparrow's real agenda is?
No.
Because I can't figure anything out whatsoever. Like, I don't even have a theory right now.
I mean, he could just be an old guy who believes in all that stuff and not have another agenda and just be some, like, I have no idea.
But that's so boring. That would be so
agree.
Boring, though.
I agree, but they, like... in shows like this, don't they they always give you like a little something to where you're like, oh, because of this little thing, maybe all these other things, it's like just little morsels so you like have something to latch onto, and the High Sparrow just stands there and does nothing, and then you're like, all right, what? Like, the only thing you can sort of safely assume is that he's just an old guy doing what he thinks he should be doing. Like, I just want a little tidbit of whatever his what the real motive is, but we've got none of it.
Yeah, I mean, even with, like, Littlefinger and Varys, like, they have a million things going on at once, but you can try to piece them together with hints. And,
right.
Like, with this guy, I'm just like, is he really just an old guy trying to enforce religion? Or does he have some kind of agenda that we're supposed to try and figure out? And, like, I want it to be the latter because that's more interesting, but all we've seen so far is the former, in my opinion.
Right. I mean...
yeah, I don't know.
Just needs to get wherever it's going.
Yeah, and, like, you know how we had, like, discussed that, like, maybe Loras would step up for Marjorie and, like, fight for her. Like, yeah, I don't see that happening at all in, like, any realm of possibility. He's totally broken.
He looks freakishly like Reek right now.
Yeah, he does.
Like, he's got the beard, he's got the just completely broken just the broken demeanor. Like, you seriously would have thought, like, he was even, like, in shadows. You would have thought it was Theon. Or Theon S. Reek, I
I
mean.
thought he was dead the first time.
I did too.
They just, like, the way they showed that body, I was like, oh, well, he's gone.
I hope he gets his act together, kind of like Theon did eventually. Because otherwise, I feel like Loras would just be a waste of a character. At least show-wise, I mean.
Yeah, this is kind of boring. I could like skip the whole High Sparrow stuff and be fine.
Yeah, it was not ever really it was not a storyline that I was ever super invested in.
I thought it was fine last season, but kind of like Arya's storyline this season, I'm like, okay, let's pick up the pace. Let's get on the road to where the major action is coming.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I liked the episode. Maybe that's because I liked the ending. But
Yeah.
but yeah, like in retrospect, not a whole lot happened.
Do we want to move over to where shit did happen and go over to, like, Meereen and...
Yeah, let's talk about Meereen. I'm kind of curious to see how things are going to play out with, like, Tyrion's basically like, Abraham Lincoln deal, how Daenerys is going to feel about that.
I think it's meant to show that, like, Daenerys clearly cannot do everything on her own. We've seen that in abundance. And Tyrion he's older, has more experience, and I think whereas Daenerys can, like, do the conquering, Tyrion can do more of, like, the day-to-day ruling
Diplomacy.
with help. Yeah, exactly. And, like, together, I think they could balance each other out very well, assuming she's willing to accept his methods.
I'm curious to see how it's going to play out with the people who were former slaves, to see if they're going to abandon her. Just because we already saw some, like, defiance with Missandei and Grey Worm with his decision.
Yeah, he definitely rattled them quite a bit, but, I mean, for all intents and purposes of this show, the Meereen storyline kind of has to wrap up pretty soon.
Yeah.
So I think on that front, you have to think, like, once Daenerys gets back, that she'll see the common sense in Tyrion's kind of deal with the slavers. It's just a matter of whether the slavers go along with it, or whether the dragons will, like, burn them all again.
I mean, not to, like, be like, oh yeah, go slavery, but, like, it seemed to be a more plausible option than what Daenerys' like deal was, because it really wasn't working out for them. Everything was falling around them anyway.
Yeah, exactly. And, like,
So-
you can't just go into a foreign country and force them to change their policies, like, in a day.
Yeah.
So I think
Well,
in that sense, I think what Tyrion is proposing makes much more sense. But the question is, will the slavers actually go along with it?
Well, that's what I was saying. It's, like, it's literally what Abraham Lincoln did. Like, he was a free soiler. He had no interest in just like ending slavery altogether. He just wanted to stop it, like stop the spread of it. And so his was originally to just like let it play out until it got too far. So that's why I like said it, like his little Abraham Lincoln deal. It worked in our history. So
After a civil war.
after a civil war, yes.
They killed many people, but I don't know if we're gonna see like a war break out in Meereen, or
I think things in Meereen are just gonna end. Like they need to. They're not really going anywhere anymore.
yeah, I agree. It's just kind of a struggle to stay like super invested in it, just because we've known from the start that Daenerys' end goal was going to be to go to Westeros. So it's like I just kind of want to see the end of this, whatever happens.
Right.
Like, I want her to move past it. Yeah.
Well, I'm thinking now she hopefully has the Dothraki on her side. She won't even really need the people in Marine at all.
I mean, I could see that, but at the same time, it just feels weird. It's like, hey, remember this whole storyline that you were invested in for a while? It's done. It's over. You know, it's not like the Sand Snake stuff where it was like, oh, well, this didn't really work, so we're just sort of ending this. This is something that we've focused on for a couple seasons. And it's like, I think, I mean, I think
It's so
you're right.
boring.
I
Get out of
agree,
there.
and that makes sense. If the Dothraki are all on her side now, she can just go, all right, well, we're gonna go do this, and you guys, the Marine can just sort of hang out, and like it works in the scope of the story, but at the same time, it just feels weird. It's like it's just over now. All those people who really love the Marine storylines, sort of. I mean, it makes
Who
sense.
loved the Marine storyline?
It was interesting at the very beginning, and then it just like fell down and never stood up again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even George R. R. Martin admitted when he finished the 5th book, he said that storyline was a bitch. That's his actual quote. And he kind of regrets that he tied Daenerys up so deeply in that storyline, and I think that may even be a part of the reason why he's taking so long on the next book, is because he's figuring out how to like get her out of it.
Right. It sounds, from listening to you talk, it sounds like he needed her to be doing something, and this was the something, and it just did not work. Like, he wanted to keep her relevant and in the front of the story, but this was just not the right way to do it, it seems.
Yeah, I mean he kept her there too long, and so like it's been called the Myronese knot because he doesn't know, like everything's tied up and he doesn't know how to undo it and separate it all at the moment. But
Just go away, get taken by the Dothraki, and then burn a building down, kill all the guys, and then become the leader. And then just leave the knot elsewhere. Let other people deal with it.
See, like, my thing is, like, I think it was boring, but I think parts of it, it's like, at the start of it, like, it was pretty clear that she was not ready to lead an entire kingdom.
Right.
So I think, like, it was boring. I'm done.
So as far as the eventual Daenerys action we got with the nice throwback to season 1, what did you guys make of that scene? When she burned the entire she burned all the cowls after they refused to see her way of things, and now it seems she has pretty much the entire Dothraki race behind her.
It seems very Daenerys of her, like, she gets put in these situations, and you're like, oh gosh, how is she going to get out of it? And then, like, 2 seconds later, everybody's on her side because she did. Like, I feel like she has these quick fixes that actually work. She's, like, all caught up and has to stay at this place for forever, and then she just goes there and she's like, oh, there's fire here, I'm just going to burn the whole thing down and everybody will be on my side. But, like,
it's always about fire.
It
with her,
works for her.
to, like, get everyone on their side.
I just think it's funny that she gets put in these situations where you have a hard time seeing how she's going to get out of it, and then you go, oh yeah, she's just going to burn everything.
Okay, so from my understanding, and maybe it's just going to be different in the show, but wasn't the thing Daenerys did that was it first season or second season? I don't know. Where she basically did the exact same thing. From my understanding, that was supposed to be a one-time thing.
Yeah, that was at the end of season 1, and that's what book readers are throwing a hissy fit about with that scene, is that George R. R. Martin has explicitly suggested that Daenerys is not fireproof, and that was like a one-time thing with a combination of magic and her being a Targaryen. But what we saw in this scene was basically she just burned all the cows. She was in the fire, and yet even her hair wasn't burned this time. It was literally just her clothes. And so that very clearly suggests to us for the show that she is fireproof completely.
I mean, as just a show watcher, I thought that was obvious. Like, not having read the books or followed anything else, when you put that in there, I was like, is she fireproof? I was like, Yeah, isn't that like part of her shtick? Is that she can is like the fire doesn't bother her? So like I didn't even know that that was a thing that people disagreed on or like there was a conflict about. Like from just a show standpoint, it seems like I don't see how you could argue that she's not just fireproof. She's just like, oh, I put my hand on this thing that's probably a million degrees and all they all freaked out and then I pushed it over and burned the whole thing down and walked out. Like her clothes burned off and she was fine. I mean she's fireproof, right?
Yeah, for show purposes, it seems pretty clear that she is fireproof. But I don't know. It's just interesting though because like we also saw her kind of when she tended to the dragons once in Marine last season. Wasn't there a point where they were like gonna breathe fire and she like backed off
Yeah,
from
and she
them?
was like, "Yo, let's not."
Was that because of a fire or because
She thought they were gonna eat her.
yeah, like anyone of they could have eaten her.
But they
It
wouldn't
was
have eaten her if she wasn't burnt, because they don't eat things that are raw.
right, but they could still kill her. They could just like bite her in the face and not eat her, or she would have died. Like
They could. I could have sworn I remember like there was a point where they looked like they were gonna
Yeah, I'm
breathe
pretty sure
out
they
fire,
now.
and she kind
The
of
fire
like
was starting to
backed
come
off
out.
like she was very nervous, and so I don't know. Like for show purposes, that's fine. That seems to be the direction they've taken that she's fireproof. It's just funny because it has book readers throwing a huge hissy fit now because they're like, George Martin said she's not fireproof, and if you read his actual quote, he kind of suggests it, but he never actually says that. So it's kind of up in the air, but it looks like the showrunners just decided to make her fireproof.
Yeah.
you don't think that could be a
It's a little
spoiler?
scene.
Good question. I don't know. It wasn't something I had thought about until that scene happened. So yeah, I don't know. It doesn't bug me. It doesn't really bug me that much because if you remember in the very first episode of the show, when she walked into the bathtub and the handmaiden was like, "No, my lady, don't go in yet. It's way too hot," or whatever, and she just walked in like it was nothing. I was like, okay, this is probably a hint that she's like immune to fire or something like that. So
Right.
Mhm.
but yeah, I think I'm trying to think of anything else that really happened in this episode.
I mean, that was
Aside
the
from
big
that, it was
thing.
talking.
That was pretty much the big thing, because it was kind of one of those moments where, like, people who have always been, like, Team Daenerys were like, finally, like, you're back to doing things the way they need to be done. Like, enough of this, like, trying to make peace with everyone shit.
Well, like she's not so much the diplomat. Like I think it's clear that that's going to be Tyrion's role going
Yeah.
forward, and she's going to be like the all-action conqueror, so to speak. And I guess it just remains to be seen what she's going to do next, and if they can together, maybe they can sort out Meereen, and then finally be like, let's get the hell out of here.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think it was just a great moment. I loved it. I was like, yes, the dragon is back.
Yeah, the badass Daenerys is back finally.
It was a little. I mean, there's a lot of episodes where there's just a lot of talking, but there's progress in the talking. I think the issue here was that there was a lot of talking and it didn't feel like there was a whole bunch of progress.
Yeah, I agree.
So, be excited for next week and hopefully some more balls get rolling.
Yeah, I know next week we're supposed to get more on the King's Moot. Like, it sounds like that's definitely going to happen next week. Looks like Arya is supposed to get a new assassination assignment, I think. So we'll see if it's like someone if it's someone we all know, or if it's just kind of like another like test to kill a random stranger or something. But yeah, definitely hoping for more action next week.
I know that there's supposed to be another priestess that's coming in that, I don't know, people are excited about.
That's right. At first I thought it was a character who appeared in Book 5, but just the fact that she's a red priestess makes me think that's not the case. But Yeah, I have. I'm not really sure if her role's going to be similar to like what Melisandre was for Stannis, or if she's just like another advisor type. I don't know, but yeah, I'm kind of curious to see what her role will be.
I feel like
Who
it's
do
been a
we
while
think?
since we got a new character.
Who do we think? We got Euron Greyjoy recently.
Yeah,
For like 1 second.
yeah. And then we
Haven't we only
haven't
seen him
seen
for a
him
total of
since.
like 2 minutes in the whole season?
Like, what is their deal with introducing new characters for like one episode and then they go away for a while? Like they did so well with Oberyn Martell, and it's like all the other new characters that have been introduced, they just like come and
Yeah.
go so sporadically.
I think they just have too many balls up in the air, and they can only do so much at one time.
This show would benefit for being on Netflix so you could binge it. Like,
Yeah.
there's just so many things rolling around that when you watch it week from week, it's like, oh yeah, I forgot that thing even happened. Since the last time you talked about it was 4 weeks ago. It's
Yeah,
just
that's a good point.
because when I didn't even start watching until I think the third season, so I watched the first two seasons in the span of like a week and a half.
I watched them in like 2 days, to be honest.
Yeah,
Because I'm
and it was
disgusting
just like
that.
all of the storylines made perfect sense. I could follow who all the people were. I knew for the most part which names lined up with which people, and it was like everybody else I talked to had a lot of trouble with all of that. And then when I started watching it week to week, it got so much harder to follow all the moving pieces.
The characters isn't what like bothers me. I'm fine with that. My friends always ask me to watch it with them so I can tell them who everyone is. But yeah, the storylines are getting hard to follow week to week, especially when they're so slow. Like it's just like, what happened? I mean, it's been not even a week, and we had to think about what happened this episode. So
Right, and that's what I think that's a great point. And like this episode, could you not have taken the three major points and just plopped it in a different episode that had more stuff? Like I feel like there was filler time because nothing got
Yeah,
anywhere.
yeah.
There was not a lot of progress. But hopefully there's more progress next week.
Yeah, according to the previews, there should be, but I mean, the previews make it look
I
like that
remember
every week.
previews. Yeah, this episode was supposed to be super interesting from what we saw in the preview.
So. Oh yeah, Bran sees the Night's King next week.
Yeah, that's exciting. I'm looking forward to that.
All right, well I think that sums up this lack of action-packed recap of Book of the
Downton
Stranger.
Abbey.
Downton Abbey of Thrones.
Yeah, this Downton Abbey of Thrones. Hopefully we'll be back. Well, we'll definitely be back next week to discuss episode 5. Hopefully we have more action, more progress in the story. But thank you as always for tuning in, and feel free to leave your thoughts and predictions in the comments. And you can also follow us on Twitter at DeadScreenNet and at A Cast for Crows. And we'll be back next week. Valar Morghulis.